Hey guys, welcome back to the fourth devlog in our series that we're currently doing. This one's going to be a bit shorter. I'm not the most visually pleasing of states, so I'm not recording my face this time with my webcam. However, I'll just be recording my screen and trying to get everything done as quickly as possible. So if you recap in the last time, we fixed the rendering system, we added support for images called JevaGraphics. We also added sound and animations, and that's the JevaSound and JevaSpreadsheet. This time, I hope that we could add clip recognition, collision detection, and also text fields. I think we've progressed in the course as well. We've actually also started adding collision, and we have started dealing with different types of gravity and all those different things. I think next that we're going to focus on is tiles, so that you can create some tile-based games and stuff like that. Oh, and we also added parallax backgrounds, parallax scrolling background. That's really cool. I may want to add that in built in this engine, but I could probably also add it as a JevaClip, so may not need to build it into the engine. I think the first thing I'm going to do is kind of just to create some hit test methods on the objects to show that they're colliding with a point or colliding with other objects. So yeah, let's jump right in. I think for this I'm going to mostly be copying some code from a game that I would have worked on myself for a project. There is the hit test. To hit test a point, which is an X and Y value, or hit test another object. I'll probably also hit test in specific bounds. So I can add all of these classes directly into our JevaClip, sorry. And instead of looking for other entities, I look for other JevaClips. And I think we'd also need to create the getBoundingRectangle class method. And that will be a private method. I think we already imported double sound and stuff like that. And it will be using the objects X, Y, width, and height. So we want to test if we call hit test with a certain point. Then we want to get the bounding rectangle of this clip, whatever the size of that rectangle is that represents the borders of this JevaClip. And we can do that easily with this rectangular double property in Java. It's a new double that holds the dimensions for us, and we can just check if it contains our X and Y coordinates within that value. And if it contains it, well, we know that it's inside of that value. That's with an X and Y. If you want to check if it touches another JevaClip, we send the other JevaClip. We get the bounding rectangle of this JevaClip, and we retrieve the bounding rectangle of the other JevaClip. And then we take advantage of this double's intersect method that internally checks to see if the two shapes intersect with each other. And if they intersect, well, we know hit test is true. And finally, if we don't want to check if it hit tests an object, another JevaClip or an X and Y, but we want to check if it hit tests a specific bounding rectangle by itself, that's where this method would help us. So 3 different ways to use this method depending on which one we would want in our code. So to test this, I'm going to implement it. So I created 2 images, a player hood, that's just a red box, and a player on hood, that's a blue box. And in our application, we just added those graphics to our engine. Then we created a JavaScript for loading that will handle colliding with, well, I'm going to call it collide with mouse for now, but it's just a point that I set it. So we add a script that loops, that just moves the object, and then we test to see if it hit test the point 400, 400, then use a player HUD graphic. Otherwise, use a player on HUD graphic. And we created this flip as well that uses this script, and we attached it to the frame, the scene. So if we run this, 400 pixels by 400 pixels is somewhere around this corner. So you can see that it's blue at the moment. And as it gets around to this point, yeah, you can see that it's red. So it looks like the hit test is working. And we can do that for another, see if it hits another clip. So what I think is that I also wanted to be able to hit test a clip by the name that we would have given it. So say if clip.hit test player 2 or something like that. Okay, so what we have is a hit test with the label, gets the boundary rectangle of this JevaClip, and then we check to see, looping through the entire hierarchy of existing clips on the stage at that point in time. And then we check to see if the label matches this label. Oh, and we also have to check if it is not this object. So if it's not this one and it matches, then we want to see if they collide. So we get the other clips rectangle, and then we check to see if they intersect. If they intersect, we turn true. Otherwise, keep checking for everything else in the list. And if we come to the end and none has intersected, well, hit test is false. Let's see to actually test this now. Okay, so we have another up there, this player 2. I just leave everything by default, so it will render the default sprite, and we attach it to the stage. And then in our test, we check to see if we hit test with that 400 point, or if we hit test a player 2. Then we use player HUDs, otherwise we use player onHUD. Let's test this and see if it works. So this is the other player over here, and if we collide, we can see that it is hitting. Let's just also move that starting position somewhere else just to test everything. So over here, it does not do any hit test unless we go to the 400 point. Yeah. And then if we also go to collide with this object, you can see that it hits. True. So hit test works. And then depending on this hit test is where we could do further details, like making sure something doesn't move beyond a wall or something like that. That's how we could implement those different things. So I think with that code, we were able to recognize and detect other objects. So that's like clip recognition. And we've also added collision detection. So now we can move on to text fields. Okay, welcome back. So I have made a few changes. I added 2 actual extended classes of JevaClips. One is called a Jeva prefab, it's called a JevaText. Now the Jeva prefab has all the previous things from inherited by the JevaClip. Well, so does JevaText, but it also has some text properties. I think the difference between the two is that the Jeva prefab would have the appearances to be able to draw graphics and paintings and stuff like that. Use graphics and use sprite sheet and being able to draw them out. Whereas the JevaText would not have those, but they would be able to draw their text values depending on what their font is and whatever their size is. So in the main game application, where I had create JevaClip before, I just have create prefab, and then I also have create text. And you can see we added a script that says if we press the space key, we want the background color to be blue and the font color to be yellow. And if you press enter, we want the font color to be blue, the background color to be yellow. And then we can even change the way that this text is displayed. So we can say clip.text is equal to goodbye world. And when it is above, we can say the text is equal to hello world. And maybe the text field is not visible. So let's just make this public. That should solve the issue. Yeah. So now let's test it. Forgot to mention that I also attached the text to the engine. So you can see we still have prefabs that work because they were JevaClips, but now they act the same as prefabs. And now we also have this text theme here that we positioned x value 200, y value 50. And if I press the space key, you can see it says hello world, the background color is blue, and the font color is yellow. And then if I press enter, you can see that it's goodbye world, background color is yellow, and the font color is blue. So the text fields actually work. And I gave them the properties of JevaClips in case you want to move them around using up, down, left, right. You can easily just adjust their x and y values all the same. The only thing that I'm not sure how to do in this one is if I narrow the width, then it should wrap onto the other line. I'm not sure how to do that just yet. Now, one of the good things I was able to fix in the last time was the rendering of paintings not being drawn when their width and height are negative. So I was able to fix that, and it also through text fields. So here we have this hello world, and if we decrease the width, we can see that once it's negative, it starts reading back what hello world. And if we decrease the height as well, it's upside down hello world. And if we decrease both, you can see that it displays depending on which direction. So the only thing I need to learn to do is sort of stretch or expand that hello world text, or make it hide or not according to how long it is. But I think that's the intended use case of it. I'm not sure if we can make it break to another line if I use the special /n character. Nope, it does not seem to be doing that. But that's fine. I think we're able to get a lot of things done in this episode. But yeah, that's it for adding text fields. I think there are also cool utilities that we could possibly add to this, and we can modify the sound module, for example, such as currently sounds are only able to play one at a time. And so if you try to spam a song over and over again, you don't get the interaction you need. But maybe if we modify the sound module to load a few copies of that sound at once, and then sound play consecutively, can loop through the copies and play the other copies of it at the same time, and you can get a more quick-paced experience. So for my game assignment, I already have that in the sound manager, where instead of just playing a clip, I play a multi-clip. So when you add a clip, you select how much you want to add, and it creates a multi-clip of that amount. And a multi-clip, it loads multiple clips up with that same file name and stores it in a clip bag in that multi-clip. So then when you call the play clip, it loops, it calls the multi-clips play clip, which loops through the clips in its bag and plays those. So if you try to play a really long clip 5 times really quickly, and you have 5 in the bag, it'll each play the 5 of those. So you won't just hear one clip played when you expect to hear 5 of them. So I'm mostly going to just transfer these features over into my game engine's sound module. That's in JevaSound. Right, so I've mostly optimized everything, and I've also added some functions like play once, play it, loop, pause, resume, and stop, and an accounting for handling all of that, so that it'll be easy to manage different sounds when I'm working on my project. I don't think we need hash maps anymore, so we can remove those. But I think that's everything here. It's not much to test, it's just so the text fields and the collision are working. And this little point down here. One thing that I can also add finally is a mouse module, because Sir has implemented, well, he's given me the code to be able to implement that now, and I can do that. I'm mostly going to be copying the code that I already created in my project, well, in my assignment. So I'm going to create a JevaMouse Java class. So we can say if JevaMouse that is down left, then sub that use clip the x is equal to JevaMouse the x mouse, and clip that y is equal to JevaMouse of y mouse. So if the mouse is down, you should be following wherever the mouse is. So it doesn't seem to be following, which means the is down doesn't seem to be working. Yeah. So the key code works whenever I'm pressing down, it seems to follow as it should. But it doesn't work for the string left, which is a problem, which is something we've got to solve. Is it? Well, those are key codes. And this is, I think it's because we have to properly append it with name. Yeah. And we gotta do that same thing for when it's up, so that it can properly be set to false. So it works. We can do this if it's pressed as well. So if mouse is released, I have an error. Concurrent modification exception. Not sure what that is. Usually it's in the hash map. I think I'm forgetting to clear the mouse states, which can cause that error. If I release, it starts to follow. Yeah. Yep, and the reason why it keeps following is because I do clear the mouse states. So I think to the so in the engine, I clear the mouse state for the key, and then I can also achieve mouse the mouse state. Cover. Let's just see if it is that similar. Clear key the state. So yes, we clear the mouse states and we clear the key states. And then we render the engine. So we take the engine. We increment the current loop cycle. That's dealing with delta and stuff like that. That's just like a built-in timer in the game. And we clear our mouse states. And if the page is being displayed, we show we render the engine. So there's a lot of things in this main engine that we're not using. And that's fine. So let's just test that out to see. So when I release, it should go at that spot. So I release and it's here, release and it's there. So every time I release for the first time, it goes to where it should be. So, and now let's see if we can do the same for the left and right. So instead of the left, let's see, right. So when I click the left button, nothing happens. When I press the middle mouse button, nothing happens. When I press the right mouse button, you can see that it works as it should. So yeah, I think that'll be all for this Devlog session. And to recap what we've worked on, we have worked on entity recognition so that when they're looping through, they can check the labels of each other to know who is who. We have checked entity collision. That's what we're doing here. And then we added text fields. We kind of modified the sound module and we implemented our mouse handler. The entity collision and detection, being able to recognize the entity in different locations, is really useful for if you have like multiple enemies on the screen at once. Like if this was, instead of player 1, it's called enemy guy, and they're at different positions. So this other enemy is probably at position number 350 and like 10. Then according to our code, that either of the entities, it should mark as red. However, what we quickly notice is that is not the case. And that is mostly because I think we also need to check for that inside. We have to use the label enemy guy. So what we see is that either of them being pressed. I think I'm having some errors again. Okay, so now let's. I think I just needed to restart it. So no matter which one it is, it will show, oh, I hit you. Oh, I hit you. Oh, I hit you. And the mouse, oh, I hit you too. So that's how we can implement just giving all the enemies the same name, and it'll be able to collide with all of them as it should. There are more things we can do to enhance our engine, like adding paintings, so that we can use scripts to draw out how objects should be if we don't want to render them look to render images every time. And in all 3 fabs, we can also look to use a graphic or set a graphic if that graphic isn't already being used. That way we can avoid spam the setting graphic over and over and over. I don't think it's an issue in terms of speed right now for Java, but it's something we can keep in mind as an enhancement. And then I think I'd also like to implement a tile-based JevaClip, so that it'll have different properties depending on the size of the tiles and where the tiles are positioned, and can test for collision on the tiles and then return which tile type is being hit. So there'll be different tile types that can support as well. And I think I'm mostly gonna look to implement that because I want that type of game to make for my final year project. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.